remember, this is the time of the year. You always do your marketing calendar for the next year, and you always set your goals for the next year. You never want to run month to month and just wing stuff. Now, part of filling out your calendar. So we're going to go through all the different marketing programs, what works best, what works least, what costs more money, what doesn't cost any money. We'll go through that. And then you've got to pick and choose based on, now, of course, we teach it all, but you got to pick and choose based on who you are and what you want to do, how much money you want to spend, how much time, how much effort do you want to put into it. All these factors. And then also you want to be paying attention to your return on investment. You always want to, that's why you always want to know when new patients come in, how did they find out about you? That's one of the main reasons is keeping track of what's working, your return on investment. So having said that, let's go ahead and go through the marketing calendar, and let's go through all the variation and what are some of the basic rules and what are some of the variations that you might want to consider. So let me go ahead and do a screen share here. Okay, so you should be able to see that. Now, remember when you do the marketing calendars, there's a couple major points you want to keep in mind. Number one, you do it for the year. You don't do it for 3 months. You don't do it for 6 months. You plan it for the year. And if you need to modify and adapt as you move through the year, you do that. But one thing you don't do is not do a marketing calendar. That's the number one reason you'll fail. I mean, not the number one, but it's one of the major reasons is you just don't plan to succeed. And a marketing calendar is planning to succeed. Okay, so having said that, and then what I always suggest is don't hide the marketing calendars. A lot of times doctors put it in the calendar in their computer. And I'm like, well, that's okay, but I don't recommend that because too many times the doctors never even look at it. So what I did with my doctors is I had them get a 12-month calendar from Office Depot. You can buy these at Office Depot. You can buy them online. That gives the 12 months of next year. That's plastic, like a plastic poster. And then you can use your dry erase pencil to write in the marketing systems. But I always required my doctors to put that marketing calendar right in front of their desk. You have to see it every day. You can't bury it into your computer. So, because I just found from experience, doctors just don't go there. These are major principles. So if you're always looking at it every day, it's always going to remind you where you're at, what you need to be doing, what you're paying attention to. Okay, now remember, you should have 2 major marketing events every 2 weeks, in addition to whatever's routine. So we'll go through the routine stuff, but you should remember, it's better to do periodic marketing than a major event and then don't do anything. Because remember, you can't process that many new patients effectively anyway. That's like when doctors, sometimes they're proud, they'll go, oh, I did this marketing event and I got 20 new patients. And I'm thinking, that's terrible. You're going to lose 17 of them. I'd rather have 20 new patients spread out over 20 days. But you can't do that because if you get 20 new patients in one event, remember, motivation decreases 50% every 48 hours. You book somebody past 3 days, the chances of them coming in get little to none. So you can't do that. So you must pick. You do not have time or money for all. You can't do everything. You got to pick and choose. And then also you want to make sure that you leverage your staff, whether it's your front desk person. If you only have one person, it's your front desk person. There's very specific things that they should be helping you do. I remember one doctor, when he wasn't busy, he sent his staff home. I'm like, you can't do that. Well, number one, it pisses them off because they have no consistency with their income. And they complained about it also. I'm like, you want to lose staff members? Go ahead and send them home when you're not busy just because you want to save a buck. I'm like, no, what you need to be doing is after they do their primary responsibilities, They need to be taught some certain marketing activities to help build the business, to increase the business during those times, not lay them off, not send them home. So you must be booked, and it really helps. It helps a lot when you start leveraging off your marketing systems and training your staff. I mean, the more you learn how to leverage off systems and train systems, you'll grow faster. You'll have a lot more greater opportunity for growth, and it'll be a hell of a lot less stressful. These doctors that are trying to do everything, that's very limiting. It is unbelievably very limiting when you try to do everything and you don't learn how to leverage off systems to staff members. So as an example, in my office, my major second hire, there's really only two major anchors in a chiropractic office: front desk person and the back person that actually acts as not just with therapy, but the marketing assistant. They do all the administrative, but everybody is taught marketing. Everybody's taught the educational sales script. Everybody is taught marketing. Now, some people are more responsible for something than others, like a referral. I taught all my staff members how to do referrals, but the primary responsibility with referrals was for my marketing assistant who does therapy in the back, and that's usually who's responsible for most of the marketing, because they spend the most time with the patients. They have the most opportunity for the internal marketing, that is. Anyway, okay, so it must be booked in the calendar, and then it's constantly trained into staff. I mean, if you're not aware of the training that occurs, I mean, you're in la la land. When you're in business, especially chiropractic practice, there is constant training, constant. Even when somebody's a black belt. And why? Why is there constant training? Because we always go to a state of homeostasis. We always want to do less to get the most. So even if you train somebody that's a black belt, they'll start slacking off. That's what'll happen. They'll start relaxing. They'll start forgetting stuff. They'll stop doing steps in a particular system. It's never ending. You just gotta. That's why in the staff meeting, there's always a component of training, always. And then, and I cover this in the staff meeting. But the two areas that you always look for problems, you're always going to have problems in two areas with staff. And it's the same with the doctor. Whatever's confrontational, that's where you're going to have problems, whether it's with the doctor, with the staff. What topics are confrontational? Marketing. It takes confrontation to do marketing, unless you're just doing advertising, paid advertising. It takes confrontation to create business. And of course, that takes conviction. So that's why every staff meeting, there's always marketing trained in. And then every staff meeting, one of the 10 major categories that we always cover is we go, okay, how well did last month's marketing events do? And remember, you always have to quantify your marketing, because that tells you if the person gets a bonus, if it's average, if it's below average, do they need training? What's your return on investment? Every marketing system is quantified. That's how you know what to do and if it's working or it's not working and what the return is. And it's evaluated every staff meeting. So in every staff meeting, one of the 10 categories will always be, how did last month's marketing do with effectiveness? And then what's going on this month, reminding everybody of what's happening this month. And then what's happening next month with marketing that we need to get ready for. Every staff meeting, that's one of the 10 categories that should be covered. Okay, so remember, you must have systems, a reason or conviction. What's a system? It's a specific person, specific training, specific place. You have to quantify results, adjust accordingly, modify accordingly, depending on the results. And that's why I say they either get a bonus, they need extra training, or they need to be moved. They just can't do it. You've already tried to train them much and they just don't have the ability. Maybe they don't have. And what's the most common reason somebody can't do marketing. They don't have the confrontation. So that's why if you hire the wrong person, you hire the passive phlegmatic or the high primary sanguine. Those are the people that have they don't want confrontation. They try to avoid confrontation. So that's why if you hire those individuals, you are setting yourself up for failure from day one. It's like trying to mix oil and water. And when you're new at it, you'll go, wow, let's try to make it work. And then it'll wear your ass out until you finally realize that you hired the wrong person. They don't even, and naturally, they don't want to do it. And therefore, they can't do it. And you either need to move them to a position they can do, or if you don't have a position, you need to let them go. And you made the mistake. So that's what's important there. So I've seen too many doctors when I do the marketing seminars show up with staff members that just don't have the ability to do it. Sometimes they can't even look you in the eye, or when they shake your hand, that they're like wilting. A marketing person's not going to be able to do that. They're not. That just isn't going to work. I mean, I usually know in 3 minutes if the marketing person's going to work just by meeting him, and I'm going, well, he made a mistake. It's going to take a while for him to figure that one out. Okay, so this is why, who you pick, number one, becomes the very first most important thing relative to helping you with your marketing. And then there's the training and the documentation. Okay, so remember the marketing formula, a target market. So remember, how far off can you go if you don't even get the right target market? If you don't get the right demographic, psychographic. Well, so remember, what are the 7 categories of a target market? Demographics, psychographics, geographic, psychographic, barriers, gateways, vehicle, deliver, USB. So how far can your marketing be off if you don't even understand, know, or focus on a target market? Well, that alone can just ruin a good marketing program. I could take a really good marketing system like educational sales, put it in front of people that don't even believe in chiropractic and are against chiropractic, and you're guaranteed to fail, even though it's a great marketing system. Okay, so that's the importance of understanding that target market, and then knowing the principles of a campaign. We cover all of these individually. Knowing the principles of a campaign, the importance of a campaign, why, what's the content of a campaign, and then, of course, the big one is establishing need. Remember, in marketing, that's the single most important thing that you can learn how to do, how to communicate to establish need. That's where 80%, listen carefully, and if you haven't written this down, if it's not branded in your brain, 80% of all your training with your staff members is role playing to establish need. 80% of your time and effort. That's where the gold is at, establishing need. Okay. And then we learn how to handle the obstacles of money, time, and an offer. And then if it obviously helps if it's in a trusted environment. So there's your formula. So the more you know that, the more you apply it, the more successful you'll be. Now, also, you got to remember when you look at marketing programs, see, you can't be sold. You can't just have somebody knock on your door, Facebook ad show up and be sold. You got to evaluate it. You go, well, what's the target market? What's the demographics? What's the psychographics? What's the geographics? What's the psychographic barrier? What's the gateway? Go ahead and do something out of your gateway, and you just wasted a lot of time and money. That alone will destroy your marketing. That'll cost you a lot of money to go outside your gateway. So you can't be sold. You got to be able to evaluate it and go, okay, well, and then when you go to the demographics and all that, you go, well, what type of marketing is it? Is it a cold call, passive referral? Is it a lead? Is it an active referral? Is it an introduction? I mean, I see stuff on Facebook where agencies are selling chiropractors on different marketing systems that nobody's looking to go to a chiropractor for. And chiropractors actually buy it. And then they find out they got to spend a lot of damn money on advertising because nobody's looking to go to chiropractor for it. That's why it usually doesn't work out right there. So you've got to be familiar with this. This is where you're going to get most of your business. Do you want to spend all your time and money with cold calls where it's only 1% effective? I want to stay the hell away from that. You've got to know the difference. Passive referrals, the faster you understand that when you give a good service, product, and price, that the vast majority of the people are not going to go out and tell somebody to come in, and that you're not dependent on passive referrals, the faster you understand that, the quicker you'll get to be more proactive. You cannot depend on passive referrals at 7%. That's when it takes you like 10 years to create a referral-based practice. And most people won't even make it 10 years. And then, of course, leads. Well, leads are 15%. What's the only difference between a lead? Well, a lead will have a gateway problem. A lead will have back pain, neck pain, joint pain. They'll at least have the problem. Now, it'll still be a cold call, but they'll have a gateway. So that's why it'll be better. That's why it's more effective with leads at 15%. But still, do I want to spend a lot of time with leads if it's only 15% and I got other marketing that's way more effective than that? Again, these are all the decisions that you've got to make. And then, of course, active referrals. And if you know how to do active referrals, it's unbelievably effective. That's when you can regularly create business. That's why I say, and just with the spouse referral program, when you're pretty good at it, you'll get 1 in 3 new patients. 1 in 3, every 3 new patients, you'll get another new patient just from that. And it's free. It's a high quality patient, and the marketing was free. But what did you have to do? You had to have knowledge. Most importantly, you had to have the skill level to do it. And that's the big dichotomy in marketing. It's skill versus paying money. That's from what works the best, skill and proactively doing it, from works the least. Doesn't take any knowledge or skill, but you got to spend money. That's the huge dichotomy. And then there's the combination of in between. And then, of course, introduction, educational sales. That's the cream of the crop right there. When you know educational sales and you combine it with introductions, high trusted sources, high trusted circle of influence. That's the absolute knockout punch right there. That's business after business after business after business, new patient after new patient after new patient. And then remember, advertising, normal is considered 1%. When you get a 1% return on your advertising, that's considered normal. If you got 3%, that's considered good. So in other words, you advertise to 100 people, it's average to get 1. So usually the cost doesn't work out. I mean, and I give an example with this. So one of the best examples I give all the time is when I was in practice, and they have it now. They have a thing called Valpak, and it's a discount. It's basically a direct mail, goes to like 10,000 homes, and there's 20 businesses, and there's 1 coupon per business, and there's 20 coupons. So the businesses are basically paying for the direct mail printing and the cost. And then the Valpak company pockets, their 30, 40, 50%, whatever. And you would only get on average 1 to 3 new patients from that. That's it. And it would cost $600. $600. Well, the doctor down the street that doesn't know patient retention, he gets his 2 patients. They stay for 4 to 6 visits. Let's say 6 visits, $50 a visit. 5 times 6 is $300. So you make $600. So he's lucky if he breaks even. That's the doctor that doesn't know patient retention or how to get new patients. Now, when I did it, I got the same number. So let's say I get my 2. Well, I knew how to keep them for 28 visits a piece. 28 was my patient retention. So you go 28 visits, 28 times 2, that's 56 total visits times $50 a visit. So That alone, just by knowing how to keep them, I made $2,800. The other chiropractor's going broke. He can't do the advertising again because he didn't even break even with the money he spent. And what was the difference? Knowledge and skill. Now it gets better than that for me because I know how to, I have a 74% referral rate. I'm always going to get new patients from my existing patients. And my goal was 1.5 new patients for every new patient within 30 days. We expected 1.5 within 30 days. So even if I got two, I got one more referral. So that's another $1,400, 28 plus 14, $4,200. So I'm making $4,000. I'm spending $600 and making $4,000 because of my knowledge and skill. They're spending $600 and losing the patient and not even making their $600 back. They can't do it again. And I did it every time. It went out about every, what did it go out? It went out about every, I think 9 weeks, something like that. About every 9 weeks it went out. Even though I was only getting 1, 2, or 3 new patients, I did because I knew how to keep them and convert them. That was the difference it made between that chiropractor and me. By the way, that's what makes the difference in all chiropractic offices because I said it all the time. They're personality driven. 8% utilization is just too small of a number to not know anything and to be busy. Results, number, quality hits. And remember, this is where chiropractors don't understand how many times you actually have to interact to create business. Well, if you do in the worst case scenario, cold call, what's a cold call? It's like you setting up a stand in the mall. You don't know them, they don't know you. You don't even know if they have a problem, a gateway problem. It's just a damn crapshoot is what it is. That's the worst business you can do. Well, you need a lot of hits, in other words, 100 out of 100 people, you'll get one. And that's average. So hits meaning interactions. Well, how many times are you going to interact with somebody before you quit? Are you going to do it 100 times? No. Most chiropractors will quit within 2, 3, 4 times. And that's it. And it's not just chiropractic. That's a human thing. People just quit when they get a no after 3, 4, 5 times. People just quit. So you can position yourself to totally lose. So introduction, educational sales with high target, you're talking about 3 out of 4. 3 out of 4. I can't tell you how many times I can do an educational sales presentation to 10 people, and I'll get easily 7 of them as new patients. And that's like a low number. Now it's way better. Now that's if it's cold calls. Because remember, even if it's cold calls, we know based on the S-curve of economics, the statistics of the people that have back pain, neck pain, headaches. So if I just don't know anything about the crowd, I already know statistically 8% of them are going to look for a chiropractor within the year. Out of the 92%, 25% of them do not have a problem, a chiropractic problem, a gateway chiropractic problem, but 75% do. I already know those statistics with those 10 or 20 people in my audience. So it even gets way better when I film my audience and I preliminary evaluate them for a gateway. So I asked them before I even invited them to the presentation, do you have now or have you in the past suffered from any of the following conditions? And I just list all the gateways: back pain, neck pain, headaches, joint pain, arthritis, old car injury. I just list all the gateways. They check any of those boxes, they're in the presentation. So I've just already significantly increased my likelihood of getting business because now everybody sitting in the audience has a problem that I treat. Just because I did something as simple as a simple survey. And then, of course, now it's Katie bar the door. This is why, what I just shared with you, why a lot of times our doctors will do a presentation and there might be 5, 10 people in the audience, potential new patients, and they'll get 12, 13, or 14 people to sign up. You go, well, how does that work? Well, they got all 10 of them to sign up, and 4 of them signed up their spouse who they knew had a problem. That's how that happens. It's called being smart. Okay, so there you are, high target market. So, and then remember, when you do follow up, and this is huge, most people don't do follow up. Follow up, most of the business with follow up occurs between the seventh and ninth contact. Seventh and ninth. Are you following up at least 7 to 9 times with the attorneys you meet? Are you following up with all your marketing 7 to 9 times with who you meet? Now, it makes it a heck of a lot easier today because of the autoresponders. It was way more difficult prior to the internet. We had to use direct mail. Now you got autoresponders, text autoresponders, email autoresponders. So it's all automated for you. All you got to do is just set it up. That's it. You set it up once and it constantly works for you. It's amazing. These tools. Okay, so marketing statistics. So you need to know the cost per new patient, the dollar per visit collection, your case average, return on investment. So the formula for return on investment is you take your profit minus the cost. So like the example that I just shared with you, if I spent, let's say it was $4,000. So the profit wasn't 4,000. So it was 3,400 minus the cost minus 600. Okay. So that was 2,800 cost divided by cost times. So that was 28. I'm doing it I'm not doing it on the screen. So I'm doing it on my computer here. So if that's 2,800 for the numerator, and then you go to the cost was 600 times 100, 6,000. So you're 2,800 divided by 6,000. Okay. So that's a 46% return on investment. 46%. If you invest in, like you try to invest in the stock market and like real conservative, you do any conservative investing, you're probably talking about 2%, 3% return on your investment. That was a 46% return. That's huge. You get a 46% return, there's only one thing you want to do. You want to do it over and over as many times as you can, as fast as you can. That's what you want to do. Okay, so the categories of chiropractic marketing. So if you look at all the potential categories, and this is how you have to do it. You got to look at all the categories and then you got to make a decision what's going to be on your calendar. Okay, so remember the 8%, the people that are looking for chiropractors, that's the 8%, they go through a flow chart. The very first thing they do is they ask their family member or friend, do you know of a chiropractor? And remember, that's true in every industry. Trust is number one in every industry. So this is the number one reason that you want to keep communicating with your patient base. That's why we do the patient video newsletter. That's why we send it out at least once a week. That's why it's video, because it's visual. That's why we do it. That's the first place everybody and anybody will go. So you look at your patient base and you go, well, they have a circle of influence of 7. So let's just run some basic numbers. So you have a circle of influence of 7. So let's say you've got 5,000 people in your patient base. Multiply that times 7. That's 35,000 people. Now, of course, some people will move away. Some people will have died, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we understand that. But we're trying to get this point across. So 35,000 people that you have a direct connection to. And then you go times 0.08%. That's 2,800 people that are looking for a chiropractor out of your 35,000 base. Divide that by 12 months. That's 233 potential new patients a month. If you have a patient base of 5,000, circle of influence of 7, most people do, mother, father, brother, sister, kids, etc. Even if you took 20% out for dying, moving away, okay, you're still going to be 35, 6, 7, you're at 28,000. So you go 28,000 people, 28. Okay. That's your potential direct source. And then you go times 8% times 0.08. That's divided by 12. 186 new patients a month from a 5,000 patient base. That's why you want to pay so much attention to your patient. It's the first place everybody goes. This is why you want to constantly stay in front of your patients and we cover all of how to do all of this. All of these systems we cover how to apply and do. I'm just trying to share with you the importance of, and what did it cost? It costs nothing to send an email, essentially nothing. To do a video, nothing. I mean, you had to learn how to do it. You had to learn the content, some real basic stuff. So you may have had to pay to learn the basic stuff of marketing, sure. But the actual doing it is nothing. So you got the highest quality patient at no cost. So there you are, patient video newsletter. Okay, next is the insurance video. And by the way, out of that 2,800, how many of them are in automobile accidents every year? 2%. 2%. So you take 2,800 or 28,000 times 2%. That's 560 divided by 12. That's 46 personal injury patients a month. A month. Just from your 5,000 that you have direct access and communication to and influence to. Are you doing it? That's 46 a month. The goal is not to keep chasing new people. That is not the goal. The goal is to bring them in and then build your tribe. Build your tribe. Communicate with them. Give them valuable information. Interact with them. It's to make your tribe. Your tribe is your patient base. It's to continually make it bigger and bigger. But you've got to continually communicate with them. That's why we do all these marketing systems. Okay. That's the goal, because there gets to be a point when your tribe's big enough, you don't even need any more people to come in. You've got enough through your passive referrals and everything else from your tribe. And that's it. And there's patients. Now, unfortunately, most doctors don't know how to do that. But every now and then you'll see a doctor that's been in practice 30, 40, 50 years. I remember going in one doctor's office. He'd been in practice, 30, 40 years. He was getting 35 new patients a month, passive referrals, but it took him 30 years to do it. Now, that was from not even knowing marketing. That was just from being there. Well, you don't want to wait 30 years. You don't want to wait 30 years to get 10 or 15 or 20 passive referrals. You want to be retired by then. Okay, so let's go into the categories. So then, of course, we got the insurance videos. And then remember, we're always talking about time. How much time does it take to do it? Effort, knowledge, skill, cost, return on investment. That's what we're always paying attention to. That's the decision makers. So the next place they go is the insurance videos. Doesn't cost anything, takes a little time and effort, but it's up forever. The return on investment, even though it's low number of new patients, the return on investment is huge because there's little to no cost. And it stays there month after month after month after month after month. That's why it's worth doing. Kind of like your sign. Your sign is the number one greatest return on investment. You buy it once, it stays out there for 20, 30 years. And 20, 30 years later, all the new patients you got for them easily makes it the greatest new patient investment you will ever do over time versus cost. Okay, so Google for Business, that's the third place they'll go. Of course, we teach how to do that. There's a lot of potential there. Depends on your competition, but that's why we teach how to do it. I've got one client gets 10 new patients a month just from Google for Business, but they really push it. And there's a lot more to it than just referrals. And I cover how to do that and what's involved. But I'm at the point it's one of those tech things that most doctors I don't even recommend they fool with, that's hired out. And so I actually have one of my business friends does this, and they just do it for you. But that's a singular entity in itself, because they can literally look at your competition, find out what your competition's doing that's making them above you, and then they can go in and do more than what they found out your competition is doing to get you higher than your competition. See, it's phenomenal. Of course, if you hire the right person, that's why I only recommend hiring somebody that does that full time and only for chiropractors. That's not one piece of everything else they do. And that's what my client does. He does that full time, Google for Business. So you want to give that serious consideration. Now it's free if you do it, but then again, you got to learn how to do it, and then you got to put the time and effort into doing it. Well, most doctors aren't really technically savvy, so unless they're a high melancholy doctor, I don't even recommend they do it. I recommend that you pay somebody else to do it. And there's only a couple things that I recommend you actually spend money on. That's one of them, because it's a huge, rich source of new patients. One of my clients in Arizona, he gets 10 new patients. He gets about 8 to 12 new patients a month from his Google for Business. Now he's using a different provider that charges $1,500 a month. So I told him, I said, I'd use my guy as opposed to, the guy you're using. My guy only charges $497. But it's still at $1,500 a month, 10 new patients. The return on investment is still phenomenal, even though it's $1,500 a month. So, but now there's such competition in that industry, it's down around $500 a month. And you go, well, how many new patients will it take to pay for that? Well, one easily. You'll go into profit from one new patient if you know anything about patient retention. Okay, then you go to condition videos, same thing. That's what they'll do. They'll Google their condition. I can't tell you how many times when we've asked the patient, how did you hear about us? We Googled, then we go, well, what'd you Google? Go to a back pain chiropractor. Boom, up come in. I saw your video on how you help back pain. There you go. That's why you need to be out there for your keywords. Your back pain location, neck pain location, all that for these videos. You go, well, how much did it cost? Nothing. Definitely took some time and labor in the beginning, definitely, but they're out there forever. I just got a call yesterday from a guy that I said, well, how'd you hear about me? YouTube. I said, what, if you don't mind me asking, would you Google? He told me, I said, what, if you don't mind, what videos? I really narrowed it down to what video. I wanted to see what video he saw. He goes, well, I saw a lot of them, but this one, I go, do you remember the title? He goes, yeah, it had to do with this. I looked at the video. I'd uploaded the video 10 years ago. 10 years ago, he came in. This is how it works. This is why this internet thing is so big. So are you going to get a lot of new patients fast? No. But what did it cost me? Nothing. It's been sitting out there for 10 years. That's how it works. And of course, you want more of them. I mean, you want as many of these gateways out there as possible, not just one. And then there you go. And then, of course, a proactive sign. That's why we really like the auto injury sign, or if you're having back pain, in other words, you focus on a problem and tell them to give them an offer to take the next step. That's a proactive sign, not just your name and phone number on a sign. Okay. So you go, okay, that's where the patients are going, number one. So that's where the 8% is going, and all you're trying to do is get more. So you have to ask yourself, this is your checklist, your marketing checklist. This is your marketing calendar. Are you doing these? Are these done? Is it a system? Are you 0 for 1, 0 for 2? Well, if you're 0 for 5 right now, you're nowhere where the 8% of the people are going. I just talked to a chiropractor yesterday. He's failing. He called me. He called me. He's failing. He just opened. He's got like 0 new patients, but his mom and his sister. And he's like, doesn't know what to do. He's never learned business. And I go through this. I go, well, here's where the 8% go first, second. Does he know anything about talking with his past patients? No. Insurance videos? No. Google for Business, he was nowhere to be found. He hadn't even applied yet. Condition videos, no. Practice. You know what kind of trouble he's in? Because he damn well doesn't know advertising or educational sales. So his only best shot is getting people who are already looking. And he's 0 for 5. He's cooked. He doesn't hire me. He's cooked. It's over for him. And he only had 6 months of running money. He had 6 months of running money. It's over for him. That guy will not even be in chiropractic a year, 2 years from now. Okay, so you've got to make the decision with that. I always recommend you do all of them because it doesn't cost anything. It takes a little bit of effort to do them, but it doesn't take much labor at all to do these. A little bit for the newsletter, insurance videos. There's no follow-up labor. Google for Business, a little. Condition videos, there's no follow-up labor, no cost. Proactive sign, there's no follow-up labor or cost, see? And that's where there's already people looking. So you're just trying to get more than your neighbor's share, that's all. That's why I recommend putting this on your calendar, putting this on your checklist. Get it done, do it, get it done, okay? At least you'll start getting a few new patients from this that are free, didn't cost you anything. Okay, let's go to the next. And of course, this is the best category. This is when you combine educational sales with circle of influence. This is where the gold's at. But what's the problem with this? Well, the problem is it takes knowledge and skill. It takes confrontation. Most doctors that don't do this, I hate to say it, but they don't have the confrontation. Usually they don't have the skill, number one. Nobody taught them it. But even if they do, they don't have the confrontation to do it. So if that's you, you've got to just scale down and go to the next best thing. But you have to make a decision if you're going to do it or not do it. And then, in other words, not have done it for 1 or 2 years and go, yeah, eventually I'll get around to it. You got to be real with yourself at some point in time and go, no, if you haven't done it in the last 6 months or 2, you're not going to do it. Do something else. Pick something else that you will do. Remember, it's always better to pick something that's less effective that you will do than to not do something that's more effective. That's just common sense. So there you go. Where's the best opportunity? Spouse. That's the highest circle of influence. Remember, the best potential new patient is under the same roof as your existing new patient. Why? There's already trust. Well, how important is trust in the formula? It's pretty important. How easy is it to see if a spouse has a gateway problem? Unbelievably easy. I just ask them, hey, Mary, do you mind if I ask you, does your husband have any back pain, neck pain, headaches, or joint pain, any old injuries? It's so unbelievably easy to see if I have a potential new patient right there. Now, if I do, they got the gateway. Well, I already know I can't use publicity and I can't. I mean, you could use advertising if you wanted to. So if you didn't have the confrontation, you could still do it and hand them a flyer. That's better than nothing. And of course, what works best is the educational sales. Take them through an established need and minimize the time and money and do a third-party book. That's what works the best. So that's why it's the best of the best. Those are the two best right there. Spouse and the kids stay right there. That's number 1 and number 2 right there. And then you combine it with educational sales. Now, remember, you can use advertising with this. You do not have to use educational sales. That's just what works the best. So if you're not doing it because you don't know educational sales, you got lower confrontation, you don't want to confront patients, do the program and hand them a damn flyer. That's not confrontational to introduce a flyer. Hey, if your spouse is having a problem, we have a special problem. We have a special offer for them. Here it is. How confrontational is that? Zero. I say it all the time. It's better to do an advertising system than to do nothing at all. Okay, because you'll stumble across some new patients. Okay, so you've got to make these decisions. The reactivation system, that's right up there. You're already in the target market. Chances are they have an ongoing problem. That's one of the first places we go when we look to build a practice. One of the first things we do, I get a client that's got a big patient base and he's suffering with new patients and he's like needs a lot of new patients fast. What's the first thing we do? Patient appreciation day. We'll pull in 5, 10, 15 new patients that fast because it already fits all the criteria. They already fit all the criteria. You already know they have a gateway problem. They live nearby. They already probably know, like, and trust you. They probably still have the problem to some degree on and off. That's a system. And of course, the referral system. And again, remember, you can just do advertising. If you don't have the skill, you don't have the confrontation, just hand them a flyer. It's better than nothing. And then we do the monthly and office promotion. And again, remember, it's better to do a few things periodically. That's why we say some of these are just natural systems that are built in, like the spouse marketing system. It's built in. That's day 5. It's built in. It's not day 7. It's not day 10. It's day 5. It's trained in. Day 5, boom. They get that system at the end of day 5 when they come in. That's it. It's a system. There's a specific person that's been trained to do it, how to do it, what to say, when to do it, where to do it. It's a system. Now, if you don't have any staff member, you're the system. You've got to do it. You get one staff member, they can start helping you do this, some of these things. A lot of these things, I had to do all of these on my own when I started. All of this I had to do on my own. And then the bigger I got, I started leveraging it off to one staff member. Then when I hired a second staff member, I leveraged a lot more off onto her. That kept freeing me up more, but kept the marketing machine moving forward. I didn't just stop doing the system. And that's what chiropractors do. You can't not do the system. You're guaranteed to get nothing. That's when you got a really up and down practice, a very unstable practice. Okay, so that's the referral marketing system. That takes skill. You want to know how to do referrals. That's educational sales. So it doesn't cost money, but it takes skill. And you have to have some type of confrontation. You definitely have to have conviction. You don't have those, hand them a damn flyer. Do advertising. Okay, monthly and off promotion, it's the same thing. That's all we're doing. We're just tying into a national event, whether it's Mother's Day, Father's Day, Valentine's Day, Christmas, New Year's, whatever. We're just tying into a national event and we're going to the circle of influence for referrals. That's it. The highest quality patients. We're going after the active patients, preferably in the first 30 days, and especially the VIP, the 3%ers and the 17%ers. That's where the gold's at. That's where the gold with the referrals are. And then we do the best system there is, educational sales, circle of influence. That's what creates periodic, regular patients. And again, if you're not going to do educational sales because you don't have the confrontation, you don't have to, then hand them a flyer. Monthly testimonials. Now remember, this is huge. This is huge. Remember, if there's only one marketing event you can do, this is it. Why? It's the number one reason people will pick a product or service. Trust. Trust. You cannot have enough testimonials, and you want video testimonials. You don't just want a text testimonial. What? 55% is visual, and you get the emotional tone of the patient. You get the facial expressions, the energy, the tone. Remember, tone is 36% of communication. You're not going to get that in a letter. Visuals, 55%. So if you don't even do a visual, you eliminated 55 and 36% of the communication if it's just in text. That's huge. And that's why we do a monthly testimonial. It goes into the calendar, and we teach how to do the videos, the lighting, the sound, what to say, everything. And we want 2, 3, maybe 4 videos per day. Well, you get 3 videos a month. Well, 12 months later, you've got 35, 40 videos. That's a lot of video, a lot of testimonial videos. And of course, we SEO them properly. We search engine up, and then you definitely want them on your website. I can't tell you how many times I've come in with doctors that I've helped put their testimonial videos on and it's on the front page of the website right there where it can be seen. I can't tell you how many times I've come in, we've talked to the patient to come in, how'd you hear about us? And it may have been a cold call, and then they got to the website and they go, yeah, I like your videos that you had on the, the different, all your different patients talking about their problems. I like that. Well, I already know trust is the number one factor. See, remember, you got a lot of patients leaving your website. You got more patients leaving your website and not calling you than visiting your websites and calling you. Are you doing anything to capture it and follow up with it or to affect? See, and we cover the website separately. But monthly testimonials, that's huge. That should just go right in your calendar. And obviously you want gateway videos. I remember I had a doctor come in, join one time. The good news is he had a video on the front of his website. The bad news, it was a terrible looking video. The lighting was bad. He didn't even look like a doctor. He was dressed in some like jeans and a casual shirt or something. I mean, he looked like somebody you'd see at a Target or Walmart or something. But what was worse, what was the video on? That he was so proud of how he helped somebody with an ear infection. I'm like, are you kidding me? You just ran off half the people that are on your website with back pain. And he was proud of it. He's, oh yeah, I helped somebody with ear. That's somebody who just doesn't understand marketing. So your videos should always be about your gateways. I had a patient who I adjusted that it restored her sense of smell. 10 years earlier, she lost her sense of smell through some trauma. I adjusted her. She came back in. What'd you do? I can smell now. So she got her smell back. I got a BJ Palmer story. Guess how many times I've ever advertised that? Nowhere. I'll tell you, I'll tell another chiropractor, I'll tell a friend. No way in hell I'm advertising that. I'm not creating a paradigm shift, and I'm not going to look like a kook, even though it's true. Okay. So, and then boy, this is a new patient machine, the in-office activation. That's how many people are coming in your office, friends, family members, and friends with your patients. It's probably more than you realize. And you're just leaving them in the waiting room. And they walk in, sit in the waiting room, you treat the patient, and then they leave. You have another potential new patient that just walked in your office and walked out. You didn't even know it. Remember, everybody that comes in, everybody is somewhere on the S curve. How easy is it going to be for me to find out when my patient comes in, and let's say they come in with their friend or family member because they're going shopping afterwards or whatever. How easy is it for me to find out if they have a gateway? Unbelievably easy. Well, there's a system to that. We get them as new patients. It's called sales. We can't just jump on them and say, oh, we can help you. No, you just ran them off. Okay, and then this kid's scoliosis check. Remember, so there's the kids' day. So once a month, we do the kids' day. If you want to do kids, you want to grow your practice 20%, like in 30, 90 days, do kids, do the kids' day. But also, every time the patient comes in with a kid, they're always checked for scoliosis. Now, it is not the typical check that you learned in school. Remember, it's a combination of education, but that's not what gets them as patients. It's the sales part. So it's the combination of education with sales. And of the two, what's most important? The sales part. The education is not what gets them. It's the sales part that does. And we go into great detail of how this works. Every kid that came into my office was checked for scoliosis. And I took them through the sales, established need. I went to awareness, consequences, personalization, minimize time or money, and I got a new patient. That's called educational sales. That's trained in. It was muscle memory. It just happened like that. Well, we train them. These are all potential new patients just floating all around you. So, new patient orientation, of course, that's a big one. Why? Because they're already existing patients. They're already feeling better. The trust and confidence is already skyrocketed, and defenses are way low. And they already know that if their circle of influence has a gateway, their spouse, their kid, their mother, or father, that's gold. You have a unbelievable rich target market. It's like one of the best, if not the best. Now remember, you can apply publicity to that target market. You could apply advertising, or you could apply educational sales. But we already know educational sales is going to work way better than advertising. But if you're not doing it, remember, if you're not doing it because you don't know educational sales, you got low confrontation, low whatever, hand them a damn flyer. Do it and hand them the flyer. It's better to do something than nothing, especially to this audience. This audience is get you the best. You want a stable, good, high quality patients. That's it right there. That's it right there. The new patient orientations. It's an educational sales presentation to the circle of influence. It's fantastic. And then you go to the VIP dinner. Remember, you can do this educational sales presentation to any target market. Obviously, the best is your existing patient base. That's why that new patient orientation, that's the best. Well, what's the second best? Go to your VIPs, your 3%ers and your 17%ers of the people, active patients who have already referred one or more people. That's so say I can preload. I can preload and increase the likelihood of getting business. And then I can also do cold calls, and it'll still work good because what do I know about cold calls? They fit in the S curve somewhere. 8% are going to look within a year. Out of the 92%, 25% of them will not have a gateway problem. 75% of them will. So even if I do cold calls, I'm still going to be getting patients. But I can pick, and then I can mix. I can go, well, I'll do a presentation. Let's do cold calls. And maybe we get 80% of them cold calls, and maybe I can only get 10 or 20% from the VIPs. See? And then I'll use the VIPs for testimonials to affect the trust of my audience, of the cold call audience. You've got to know these basics and not just wing it and jump anywhere and fly anywhere and try anything. There's a sequence. You go, okay, where is it on the target market? Where is it on the circle of influence? Is it publicity, advertising, or educational sales? That's what you should ask yourself every time you look at a marketing program. And is it a gateway or not a gateway? If it's not a gateway, you're in big trouble to start with. You're going to spend a lot of money. Okay, personal injury attorney education. Okay, so that takes a lot of skill. It's fantastic, takes a lot of skill. I always recommend, like what I did, is every Friday at lunch, my staff member was trained how to do the marketing system. They kept track of the marketing system, and they lined me up with attorney presentations every Friday at 11. It was either a new presentation, a follow-up presentation. It was either a case evaluation. There was something going on. Every Friday was the personal injury attorney mark. That was totally designated. That was a system. And of course, we teach all this. Paralegal lunch and learn credit hours. That's a very easy way to get into attorneys, help educate it makes them look good. They get you're helping their staff. So you're giving them free information and a free lunch. It makes the attorney look good. And especially if you apply credit hours to it. That's a great stair step to get to the attorney. A lot of times these are the people that call the shots. Remember, the attorney is the owner, attorney is the decision maker, but these are the huge influencers. And then, of course, the medical doctor referral marketing. We cover that in great detail. Remember, there's more patients going to medical doctors with back pain than chiropractors. It's the second leading cause of general practitioners' new patients, back pain. You've got people driving by your office every day, going to the emergency room, going to the general practitioner with back pain. It's the second leading cause of going to the emergency room. You want new patients, go down to the emergency room and give a presentation. Now, I'm joking to some degree. That's where all the new patients are. They're not looking for chiropractors. So if you're not willing to step out and get into this audience, this is why chiropractors don't do very well at all. They don't know it, or they're not willing to do it. So the medical doctor referral, we go into exactly how to do that. And that's set up the same way. We just target the local emergency rooms, doctors. We target the urgent care centers and the general practitioners. Remember, there's more, also not just back pain, but there's more personal injury patients that go to medical doctors than to attorneys. Remember that. So that's a good system. And again, that's just you just line it up just like the attorney system. Where you go, okay, every Thursday, this is the time period. This is the marketing for the local medical provider. And you get your list together, the marketing together, the marketing campaign together, all the steps together, the message together. See, we cover all this. Whether you want to do it or not, that's up to you. That's where the gold's at. That's how I opened 77 offices in 20 states, did $90 million a year right there. What's the good and bad news about that? A lot of good new patients, very low to no cost, higher quality patients. What's the bad news? You actually have to know something. You actually have to have some knowledge and skill, and you actually have to have a little bit of confrontation and conviction about you. You hire a staff member that doesn't have confrontation, they won't be able to do any of this. I hired a really good staff member. I stole her out of McDonald's. She was a manager at McDonald's. I would go there every now and then, and I saw her personality. She was just strong. And I won't go into hiring right now, but I just saw she had a lot of the qualities of an employee. I could just see that just by watching her interact. And so I offered her a job. She come to work for me, and she was not afraid of people. She was used to controlling, leading, talking to people. She was good talking to people. I'm like, man, I taught her educational sales. She was a referring machine. And by the way, she came in as a patient also. So she had conviction because she got better with chiropractic, and she had the fantastic confrontation personality. I just taught her and trained her, and man, she was a machine. She was a new patient machine. Again, you have to have some knowledge and skill to be able to do this. Okay, so that's where the gold's at. That's category number 2. Category number 3, that's the cold call. This is the advertising you don't want to do at all. And if you do it, you want it to be the least amount, and you want to consider it the topping on the cake, not the cake. Unfortunately, most chiropractors don't know marketing. And when I do practice analysis and I look at marketing, this is the majority of their marketing. Crap. Spending a lot of money on the worst kind of patients. Now, we do recommend, so there's Google pay-per-click. If you're going to do it, we do recommend how to do it and what we should do, because there is certain marketing, that cold call marketing, that we recommend. Now, Google pay-per-click is number 1. Why? Well, because when they Google chiropractor location, and by the way, that's the industry keyword, we already know it's a new patient. So that's not true with Facebook. I don't go to Facebook to pick an optometrist or a dentist. If I'm going to Google chiropractor or dentist location, I'm looking for a dentist. I'm a new patient. So that's where you go first if you're going to pay. And then Yelp advertising. Well, what are they doing in Yelp? If they're looking at chiropractor location, you think they don't have any intention on going to a chiropractor? No, it's because it's a new patient. And you're in a trusted category. They're looking at a trusted source, Yelp, reviews. So if you were going to, this is a little bit of the hierarchy of cold call advertising. If you were going to do Facebook's number 3, the reason for Facebook can be good is if you understand demographics, psychographics, and geographics, and you can do automated follow-ups. There's no other vehicle that allows you all the options that Facebook does. TV doesn't, radio doesn't, direct mail doesn't. You have so many you have so now if you don't know any of them, if you don't know demographic, psychographics, geographic, psychographic barriers, if you don't know follow-up, USB, you don't know, it doesn't matter then. I mean, it's a crapshoot. You shouldn't even be doing it anyway. But if you do know these, you can really narrow it down, especially now with AI. They're turning AI onto this. So you don't even have to be smart at all. And essentially how that works is they say, hey, just throw some money at it. Throw the keywords and throw some money at it. And let's see what hits and what doesn't. Because remember, Facebook and these companies, they got 40,000 data points from your email. It's phenomenal. So one way of doing it is just going, okay, throw some money at it for 3 months. And when they get a certain number back, they evaluate those people that made the phone call or made the click, and they go, okay, we got our hot demographic. We know the demographics, psychographics, geographics, what day they call, what time they called. See, it's unbelievable how tight and specific you can make your marketing. That's what increases the effectiveness of it. And then especially if you have the right message, and then especially if you capture them, follow up, the importance of follow up. That's called an opt-in. Okay, so that's, and by the way, remember, you can also dump your email. So if you don't want to go that route, you can take your patients' emails and dump them in there. They'll get all the data from your patients, demographics, psychographics, all that information. So you don't even have to know the details of that. You just have to know it's available and how to use the tool. That's all. So if you go, hey, just follow the demographics, psychographics, and geographics of these categories, dump in your a certain number of your patients' emails, the minimum that they require. Boom. AI just gave you like unbelievable precision. And also, so it's way tighter. And also remember, you don't lose money on pay-per-click if nobody clicks on it. That's what's great about, pay-per-click today versus direct mail 20 years ago. I did a direct mail piece. I paid $1,500 whether anybody called or not. You can spend $1,500 on pay-per-click. If nobody clicks on it, you didn't lose a penny. So, and again, we cover, how to do each one of these to increase its effectiveness. And then YouTube advertising. Remember, that's the second highest search engine is YouTube. You might want to consider, you definitely want to do the organic first. That's why you want to do all those insurance videos, condition videos first that are SEO'd properly. That's what you definitely want to do that before you do advertising, but you may want to consider the backup with the industry keyword. And remember, the only marketing that you definitely want to do when it comes to the internet is the industry keyword, and that's chiropractor, your location. That's a new patient. You're essentially buying new patients. That's what you're doing. So don't do anything else, but you definitely want to do your industry keyword. And it can get unbelievable specific. You don't have to spend $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. You can remember, once you get the data points, you can find out, let's say most of the phone calls are Monday from 8 to 10 o'clock in the morning. And then you're only bidding and applying for 8 to 10 o'clock in the morning once a week on Monday. So remember, the more precision you have, the less it costs. The less precision and the more generic, the more it's going to cost, the more you're going to waste. But that's kind of life, isn't it? Local newspaper. If you do have a local newspaper, only if they're subscribers online. Now this is online or offline. Now there's criteria with that. Is it local? What's the number of subscribers? What's the cost? Sometimes these are sneaky. These are like the forgotten sources. I always say if you got a little town local newspaper, that's a great place for a back pain or auto injury ad because the cost is unbelievably low and you have a certain amount of subscribers that are local. You got essentially a captive audience. Now, radio and TV is a different animal. because obviously it's going to be, most of it's going to be way outside your geographic radius of draw. So you're going to lose 80, 90, 95% of the audience just because they're outside of your geographic radius of draw. So that's why you don't want to do that unless you have multiple offices. You can try it. You can go, well, even though I lose 90% of the potential, of the 10% that comes in, gives me greater than a 3-to-1 return on investment. Well, then it'd be worth doing, even though you're losing 90%. Okay. What I did before I had 9 offices, I had 9 offices in my metro area, and we just split the cost. But before I had 9 offices, what I did is I got together with a local podiatrist, and we did direct mail, and I was on one side and he was on the other, and we split the cost 50-50. That's what we did. You got to think out of the box a little bit. And then remember, you're always measuring return on investment. That determines if you're going to do it or not. And then these are the categories of internet marketing you definitely want to do. We already talked about Google pay-per-click. That's a new patient. And remember, it's only for the industry keyword. Now you can try all the other stuff just to see how back pain, neck pain, whatever. But if they're Googling chiropractor location, that's a new patient. Okay. So Google pay-per-click, you definitely want to do that with the keywords. And we cover how to do that step by step and increase its effectiveness. And it's with the follow-up billboard advertising. That's the advertising when if you've been somewhere and you look for a pair of tennis shoes and you go to a different website, you'll see the tennis shoes, advertised in the other website, and you go, how the hell did they know I was looking at those tennis shoes on that other website? That's called billboard advertising. You definitely want to do that because that's like a follow-up. And so it's cost less. So it's like a 1-2 punch. You do the pay-per-click. So there's several components that increase the effectiveness of this. You don't just do it. Okay, same with Yelp advertising. We already talked about that. Facebook geo pay-per-click, we talked about that. YouTube pay-per-click. Now remember, we're only talking about the industry keyword. That's all. Otherwise, you would just try it, sample it, check your return on investment. That's that. Website offer with automated follow-up. You should always have an opt-in capture on your website with the follow-up. And the follow-up solution don't make it gateway based, because if you do your opt-in for back pain and they got neck pain, there's no reason for them to follow up. So you always make it pain. It's always about pain, muscle spasm, restricted mobility, because that's the 3 number 1 symptoms the patients have. So it doesn't matter if they have neck pain, back pain, sciatica, disc bulge, it applies. And one of the best things you could do, not just a follow-up, because remember how important the follow-up is. One of the best things you can do is do your your new patient orientation, video it. Remember, because that's a sales presentation. Video it, and then you use that for your opt-in follow-up. It's one of the best things you could do. Okay, YouTube, we talked about your website, monthly testimonial videos, and we talk about how to use them. Remember, we always syndicate videos. We not just create them and then we SEO them and throw them into all the different, on our website and all that. But we take them and we syndicate them through all the different social media sites, and we syndicate it on a blog. So these links they go to like 40, 20, 40, 60 different sites that have backlinks and NAPs, naps, name, address, phone number. And remember, backlinks are one of the single most important influencers for the strength of your website, and NAP is one of the strongest influencers for your Google business profile maps. It's all of this comes together. All of it comes together and makes everything stronger. So there, social media pay-per-click, you can try that. Again, I don't recommend necessarily doing TikTok and all that. I'm not going to TikTok if I'm looking for an optometrist. That's why I'm not going to be advertising on TikTok. I'm going to Google pay-per-click. That's where I'm going. That's where the business is. Social media advertising. People go, they're jumping to everything. Like the next thing that comes up, they're going, oh, you need to be over here. There was one, I think, called Periscope, or I think it was Periscope. They were like, oh, you need to be doing Periscope. I'm like, no, you don't. I'm not going to Periscope. Number one, most people never heard of it. Number two, I'm not going to Periscope when I'm looking to hire an attorney, a dentist, or an optometrist, or a chiropractor. Remember, you got limited time and money. You got to make your choices. And then the other one is the medical legal podcast. That takes some knowledge and skill and effort. But man, you do a medical legal podcast and then interview the attorneys. Everybody likes to be interviewed or seen as an authority or respected. You want to like put a lot of emphasis on your personal injury. That's one of the things you want to, not just the personal injury attorney presentation, the continuing education hours, the lunch and learns, the paralegal lunch and learns, the attorney happy hours, but the attorney medical legal podcast, because it makes them feel like an authority. And you talk about a great way to start creating a relationship and step into the door. It's a great stepping stone to getting into the law firm, to get to the presentation. It takes a little longer, but again, if you want to build your personal injury, you have your whole personal injury category of marketing, and you follow through with all those regularly, and that's how you build a huge personal injury practice. That's how you build anything big, with focus on it in multiple venues. So these are all the categories. These are pretty much all the categories that you're going to be dealing with. You've got to pick and choose these. Which one do you want on your marketing calendar? You got to put them in. You got to train to them. And then remember, there's an inverse relationship between knowledge and skill. So when you have knowledge and skill and you combine it with the highest form of most effective marketing, educational sales, that creates the most abundant business, least cost, highest business. And especially if you do it in group settings, like a new patient orientation or a healthcare dinner presentation. Now it's not one-to-one. Now you're getting 5 and 10 new patients at a time. So you want to pick and choose. Now I showed all of this stuff. I trained all of this stuff in, and even the doctors I opened. But you think I did all of these systems with 77 offices in 20 states? The answer is hell no. I'm just saying me, because I've got high confrontation, and I picked doctors that had confrontation. So everything we did was based on the educational sales was way over where we paid our attention, because we had doctors who had the ability and the confrontation to do it. So that's why you got to be real with yourself. You go, well, I don't feel comfortable doing that. And if you already know about it and you haven't done it, you're not going to do it. Scale down and do something that's not as effective, but you're willing to do. And so unfortunately, that's the spectrum. You either have the knowledge and skill and you do that it costs the least and it's most effective, but what's the trade-off? You have to have knowledge and skill. Well, what's the opposite? Well, you don't have to have any knowledge and skill with advertising, cold calls, but what's the trade-off? It costs a lot of money. It's the worst kind of patients. It's the highest overhead, lowest profit. There's your trade-off in marketing. So when people don't know and have the knowledge or skill, they always start with this because they don't know any better. And unfortunately, they never learn, and they just get stuck in the worst kind of patients spending a lot of money. But no, that's not what I did. When I trained doctors, I trained on 7 marketing systems. That's it, 7. I opened 77 offices in 20 states by training only 7 marketing systems. Most of them, 5, 6 out of 7 were the educational sales systems. In other words, the doctor actually had to know how and create referrals in my office before I allowed him to open. He had to do the new patient orientation. Not only do it, he had to be effective, because we keep stats, remember? We keep stats. We go, okay, how many were there? What was the potential of new patients? How many did you get to come in? and we wanted over 50% of the potential that was there. We do the even if it was a cold call, free dinner, healthcare presentation, they had to be over 50%. In other words, they had to have the skill and knowledge, or I did not open them. They stayed and they kept training. And that's like that chiropractor I met yesterday. The worst thing that happened to him is he should have trained while he was still an associate doctor. He was an associate doctor for like 1 or 2 years, but it was a PI office and he didn't learn anything. He just adjusted patients. So he thought he knew more than he did. He didn't. But the bad news is he didn't have the knowledge or skill and he opened. Well, now it's on his dime. He's now paying monthly all the overhead and he doesn't have the skill. Now, it'd be totally different if he had the knowledge and skill and he opened. He'd kick it. He'd just kick it right in and go. But he's in a real jam. He's got 6 months of money and he doesn't have the knowledge or skill. It's not going to work for him. He's going to crash in 6 months. He's going to have to go work for somebody else, or he's going to get out of chiropractic. And it's going to stay that way until he actually learns the business. Okay, so I'll send this out. Take a look at it. Now, we go through all of these. I cover how to do all of these. That's what we do every week in the new patient webinar. And we will continue. And so you want to get loaded for next year. So you should look at this last year, look at the return on investment, look what worked, look what didn't, and then move more to what worked, and then start putting these systems in place. But you should only pick a handful. Okay. Now, I will share with you this. I'll come down here. Okay. I'll go into what is the most effective marketing. So what's the most effective marketing? The number one overall best return on investment, your sign. We already talked about that. You just don't get a lot of new patients. Now, depending on, and we talk about the components of a sign, how to make a sign more proactive. Okay. But you should at least be getting 1 new patient a month from your sign. So we'll pay attention. But that's not going to get you a lot of new patients fast. That's the greatest return on investment. Then you go, what's the best marketing? No comparison, educational sales. Number 1, new patient orientation. The VIP educational sales presentation. That's where the gold's at right there. But it takes knowledge and skill and confrontation. You want to build a practice fast. This is how I opened 77 offices in 20 states. I did this and this was before the internet, with the yellow pages, but a lot of times the yellow pages, they only come out once a year. So when I opened an office, the yellow pages didn't even come out a lot of times for 6 months, 4 months, 6 months, 8 months. We weren't even in the directory. So this is all proactive. They were trained how to do it and they were not allowed to leave until they actually not only knew how to do it, they had the skill level statistically to do it. And that's why every office not only succeeded, but the average number of new patients was twice the national average by the end of the first year. 222 patient visits a week. That was the average after 1 year of my doctors. That's from good training. Now they needed associate doctors. They couldn't see any more patients. That's how it works. The VIP educational sales. So if you want to get serious about new patients, this is getting serious and cranking it. The personal injury attorney presentation, the medical doctor presentation, the spouse to day 5, kids day, report referral. But it's off the charts. Number 1, 2, 3, number 1, 2, and 3. New patient orientation, how to give the presentation, educational sales presentation, even if it's the cold calls. And then the personal injury attorney presentation. I say it over and over. If I was training today, there'd be only 4 marketing systems I would train. 4. And I'd train the hell out of it. Number 1, patient education, patient retention. That's patient education. Everything starts there. Number 2, educational sales for referrals. That's when you get great referrals. That's educational sales. Now that's one-on-one, how to get them, but then also how to do third party. Number 3, presentation. How to do the presentation. That's the new patient orientation or the VIP presentation or the cold call. The presentation's the same. You're just increasing the effectiveness by who's in the who's in front of you. And number 4, the personal injury attorney presentation. That is all I would train. That's it. And then I would include in that Google pay-per-click and Google profile. That's it. Those are the 6 marketing systems. That's the only thing I would do if I started a practice today. Unfortunately, it takes knowledge and skill, confrontation. You got to be willing to do it. Doctors that are timid, got low confrontation, they won't be able to do that. So you got to go to the second best. Best paid advertising, Google pay-per-click. Why? Because that's where they're going. That's where they're going, Google. With the banner advertising and Yelp advertising, and then Facebook geolocation would follow up. And Google business. That's the best paid advertising right there. We already said the bare minimum you should do with paid, Google pay-per-click, Google business profile. When you do Google pay-per-click, it's only for the industry keyword. That's it. That's it. That's the only real marketing you should pay for, period. Best free advertising, YouTube videos. Now you already know if it's free, it's not going to be as effective. You're not going to get as many fast. YouTube videos, industry keywords. YouTube, it's the number 2 search engine. Video newsletter with your patient base. That's the best free advertising right there. Best publicity advertising, Community Leaders Day. That's when you get a list of all the community leaders, chief of police, fire chief, mayor, city council, pastors, not just the chief of police, but also get the police officers. This is when you get the influencers of your community. Best publicity advertising, Community Industry Leaders Day. It basically, it's a patient appreciation day, but it's targeted to the major influencers in your community, the pastor, the mayor, the police chief, the city council, the pastors. There you go. And of course, we always talk about how to market that. You want to use that for the influence. That's why we do it. It's for their influence. And there you go. There's your marketing calendar. You got limited time and money. You got to make a decision what you're going to do. Put in the regular systems. So what are the regular systems that you should be doing? Day 5, spouse to day 5. That should just be routine. The monthly in-office promotion. That's just every month with what's coming up. Mother's Day, Father's Day, whatever. Reactivation, referral, the re-report referral, new patient orientation. That just should be routine stuff. And then I always say, routine for me, every Friday was personal injury. That was our marketing every Friday at 11 o'clock. I was going out, either new attorney, follow-up attorney, somewhere on the marketing list. I was doing one of those events. And then same thing with the local general practitioners. And of course, we talk about how to do all this, whether it's to urgent care centers, to general practitioners. And of course, we like neurosurgeons. Neurosurgeons work really good with chiropractors. And there you go. That was it. That was the marketing calendar. So you put that in the marketing calendar. You decide if you want to do some of the more proactive stuff that really creates business fast. And then do the bare minimum industry keyword with pay-per-click. That's how it happens fast. All my doctors that increase their business, $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, they're the ones who do this. When I have clients who don't increase their business $200,000, $300,000 in 6 months to a year, they're the clients who are not doing this. It's black and white and it's crystal clear of the ones who do versus the ones who don't. And it's over and over again. So at some point, hopefully you make the decision to actually take control of your business, take control of your life, and you create the destiny you want. You don't wait for it to happen. because it's not going to happen for 8% utilization and a 67% negative name recognition. You're in for one hell of a bad lifestyle.